Hey, Barbara, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing, Mark?
I don't know how to say hello in South African, Swahili.
How's it? If you were a good Safa, you'd say, how's it?
How's it? That's it?
How's it? There we go.
That was easy.
Yeah.
Now, that's just like how is it?
Yeah. HOWZIT. How's it?
How's
Isn't
it?
it?
Yeah.
How's it? Yeah. It's a typical South African greeting, regardless of what language you speak.
Oh, it's hilarious because a few weeks ago I was talking to this gal who used to work with me back when I was running a green agency, and she's in Denmark right now. And I said to her, I said, so how do you say hello in Danish? And they go, hi, hi.
Okay.
I'm a
There
citizen
we
of the
go.
world. I feel like I'm expanding my cultural horizons talking to people like you. All right. Now, you are a business that is near and dear to my heart. We got to know each other. I don't even know how. I think it was on LinkedIn. And then I looked you up because I said, aha, soap. I like soap. I love all stuff that's sort of botanical. I love the whole natural health and vitality space. So we connected, and you told me your story, which I'm not going to give away. You're going to get to tell it. And we got together. You joined Brand DIY, and essentially we gathered a tribe together, and a crew of people helped you with a whole bunch of stuff that you needed help with on your business. And we've got a miracle on ice, modern day fairy tale, and you're well on your way now. And that's why I want to bring you on. And you also have some cool challenges that I want to
Yeah.
talk about.
I think cool challenges for growth.
So yeah, so welcome.
Thank you.
Now, let's go back to the beginning. You and I met LinkedIn, I don't know, and we talked to each other, and you told me the story and why you were doing what you were doing. So let's hear that.
So when COVID hit, my husband had just basically lost the contract that he'd had, and I think the whole world went into a little bit of a shell shock with the fact that everybody's life came to an abrupt standstill across the globe all at once. And as we were all trying to figure out what to do, the business that I'd previously been involved with, which was dealing in South African art and craft, and then selling those items across Canada in the various craft markets, came to a standstill. And as much as it has been like a bit of a hobby for me, because we really relied on my husband's income as our main source of revenue, I realized that the folk that were creating the art and craft in Africa actually were in the same position as what we were in, which is everybody had gone from hero to zero and had just stopped earning. And one of the biggest problems with Africa is, of course, you couldn't get product in or out. I mean, Canada Post, DHL, no one was sending stuff unless, of course, they were charging huge amounts of money with massive delays. So the village that we used to get our art from, a little place called Bathurst in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, has an indigent community associated with a village called Nolukanyo, where the unemployment rates are above 70%. That's before COVID. You've got huge issues with AIDS and tuberculosis in the area, and really communities of children without parents around to guide and bring them up and so forth. So a lot of the local business owners and artists in that community, it's a very art-driven community, support those folk in terms of helping them to pull together craft and that. And one of the artists that I used to work with, Tori Stowe, was very involved in doing all of that. So my first thing was, well, let's try and raise some money from the communities, my friend communities here in Canada, and send money back, because they put together a feeding scheme to provide food for grannies and children that had no way of earning a living or access to government funding. Certainly not enough to live on. I think the average rate of COVID compensation in South Africa was 200 Rand a month, which is the equivalent of $20 a month. Just insane. So we started raising money. We raised a couple of $100 at a time, ran into thousands, and I thought, well, gosh, I really need to find a way to give back to these people that are donating $100 at a time. My son made the hippo. He'd actually made it a couple of years ago, this little sculpture of a hippo, after we spent hours and hours and hours driving behind a hippo in Bathurst. And so I thought it was quite a good symbol in terms of connecting Bathurst with the whole thing of being really frustrated with a situation that you can't control. And it's a very African thing, this whole hippo. It's also the deadliest animal in Africa, believe it or not. So we created the hippo. He made a whole bunch of silicone molds. We started pouring soap, and I started giving people hippos as gifts every time they gave me $100 for Nolakanyo. And then folk were like, Barbs, can we just buy the hippo? So quite inadvertently, we landed up with an industry making hippo soap, and 10% of our profits go back to that community. So we just gave our first donation for the last quarter of 2020, which was $450, and that basically paid for all the implementation of 7 rainwater tanks, which were donated by other businesses and the communities. So that entire community now actually has access to water that they didn't have previously. And what we've done is provided the paid for the services to have it actually plumbed to the various households.
Now I want to break in, because the reason you and I met and what I was driving at originally is you and I met, and I just fell in love with the idea, not because it's soap, but because you said, you know, we're in a really crappy way. And when you're in a crappy way, the way out is to help other people. Now, I'm going to park that thought here. Other thought is, everybody said you're nuts to make soap. And soap is the most oversaturated market in the world. And so there you go, making soap, but the soap is selling. And I would believe that the soap is selling not because you're selling soap, but because people can embrace what's behind the soap. You know, when you told me that what you wanted to do is to help other people, right away I go, man, it's been so long since I've heard something like that, if ever. And you just want to help you, because, you know, you make all of us feel better, and you make us sort of park our stupidity and go, wait a minute, what's it all about anyway? And it has been for me personally, you know, bringing you into BrandDIY and having you work with all these people has been for me like one of the most amazing things. I just love it. You know, it's so cool.
Well, again, remember that when I started making soap, I had a hippo and I had a soap. I didn't have a brand. So there was a difference between making soap as a home industry, which is basically what I was doing, and then turning that into a business. So basically when we met, it was a case of, well, Mark, I've got this hippo soap. I don't know what to do with it. People want to buy it. But if we're going to turn this into a business, I need help, which is basically where all the BrandDIY team came in. And that's about creating, using the story, which is what our story was, and creating a product that allows other people to buy into that story and to make a difference. I think the big thing was when we started making hippos, it was about helping people and giving thanks. With the brand BEBA Collective and Hippos for Hope, we allow other people to buy into that. So by buying a hippo and giving a hippo, you are also sharing love and giving back, not just to the person who you're gifting the hippo to, even if it's yourself, but also to the community that we support. And I think the BrandDIY team really helped create that because it was about getting the message right. And I think there's a big difference between homemade and handmade. And I think there's a big difference between selling a bar of soap and creating a brand that provides hope.
Yeah. So now, I mean, folks who don't know you yet, I mean, they can go to BrandDIY and read the streams, because there's a lot of stuff that we've gone back and forth and as we were developing work. But this is usually about a challenge, and you and I talked about this before. In a few short months, you had to figure out social media, you've had to figure out e-commerce, you had to figure out website, you had to figure out distribution, you had to figure out everything, and it just about killed you. And I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are feeling the same way. And we're also, you know, you and I talked about this sort of this cult of, you know, fast results porn. All you have to do is look at a YouTube video, and the pre-roll commercial is this guy telling you that if you're not on Facebook ads, you're a loser, or you have to shoot your own videos, or you have to go with consulting.com. And who are these guys? And you're just like, shut up. But we get flooded with all these ideas. All you have to do is adopt this one shiny thing, this new social media tool, and your life is complete. You know, if you use Grammarly to write all your sentences, suddenly you're going to be a millionaire. And you're like, shut up. But entrepreneurs are surrounded and inundated and frustrated because they don't know how to use all this stuff. And you're like that.
And there's too much overwhelm. You've got, I think, one of the biggest problems with 2020 and 2021 is not so much figuring out what to pay attention to, but rather trying to figure out what not to pay attention to.
Yeah. And it's, you know, we were talking about the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your results probably come from 20% of the stuff that you do. But it's insidious. We keep getting told to add one more thing and this thing and that thing, and this will make that better. And this is it. And suddenly you're presiding over this empire of useless technology, and you've forgotten what actually got you good in the first place. And I think there's a lot of people feeling that.
So, Mark, you know that I had a soap business before in South Africa. So, I mean, that was, so going back to making soap wasn't, it wasn't a new thing for me. It wasn't a new skill that I had to learn. I used to, I had a fairly large soap business a couple of years back that I sold. And so when Gareth suggested making the hippo and doing all of this, it wasn't a new skill set that I had to learn. But applying that into the modern way of sales, I mean, in the old way of doing it, what I would have done 10 years ago was put reps on the road, provide retail stores with stuff, and maybe put a couple of students at the various farmers markets. So I'm not new to business, but what has been absolutely a mind shift really has been the fact that in order to get into business today, the landscape of business has changed fundamentally. I mean, there's nothing special about soap. If you have a look at the IBIS World Reports and that kind of thing, which we've now had the privilege of in hindsight doing the research, anybody would have said I was stark crazy trying to get into the whole business of selling soap. But I think that the business of selling hope is a biggie. And I think that all businesses going forward, regardless of what kind of business they are, has to embrace the digital economy. And the challenge to entrepreneurs, exactly as you've said, is going to be trying to figure out what to focus on. There is so much out there. And I think the bottom line is 80% of your time has to be going back to basics and then finding the resources to outsource to specialists. Because at the end of the day, if I didn't have access to the guys within BrandDIY that basically donated their time to helping me get the fundamentals in place, I don't know that we would have had the growth that we had. And I mean, as you know, the growth, I don't know if you want me to put on this thing what the growth was that we've had over the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, you can say, sure.
So when we started out making hippos in May, it was just as gifts, and June it was as gifts, and July and August we sort of started thinking, oh well, gosh, this COVID thing's not going away. Brad's still got no work. What the hell are we going to do? Maybe we should try and, do something. And that's when, and then folk was saying, well, why don't you sell the hippos? And all logic said that that was a crazy idea. There was, in fact, I was frantically making hippos, and my family was saying, Mom, we need to actually do something else and get a job to support you, because you're sort of on a hiding to nothing. Where we got the hippos into Amazon in August. We turned $500 in August on Amazon. We turned $100 on our Shopify website in September, and $1,000 on Amazon in September. And then our sales went into October. We did 1,000 on our Shopify website. In November, we did 7,000. In December, we did just over 12,000. And I'm not mentioning the Amazon sales.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is helping.
And that's an industry, honestly, that anybody would have said we would have been absolutely crazy to get into.
Yeah. Now, you and I had a conversation just prior to starting this, and we covered a couple of different things. How, what could people do better? What's been your experience? And one thing that this is something that I see all the time. This happens to me all the time, and I shared it with you. When people are working with entrepreneurs, and this is to all the brand people out there, all the technologists, all the people supplying services to entrepreneurs, listen up, this is important. One of the things that you have to remember is that an entrepreneur is a master of nothing. They have to be generalists. And so they are leaning on you to give them not only answers, but implementation. So if you are going to show them how to do ads on Facebook, it can never be, yeah, you should do ads on Facebook, just like those YouTube videos. And they teach you just enough so you go, I got to do ads on Facebook. Here's $100. And then nobody teaches you anything. And you go, I hate myself. You have to go in and say, do ads on Facebook. Here's how you do ads on Facebook. I'm going to do the ads on Facebook for you. I'm going to teach you, like the fisherman, I'm going to teach you how to fish. That's the whole point of BrandDIY, is people helping each other, but not just saying, yeah, you should, because that just makes people nuts,
I think, Mark, that the other thing is realizing that we're all in the same boat, and we're all trying to make a living at the moment. So as much as everybody's happy to give of their time, and the guys at BrandDIY have been amazing, the biggest thing about any business owner and any responsibility, any entrepreneurs, is that you have to take responsibility for your own growth. I mean, one of the things, for example, was Erin with Mint CRO has given me access to a whole bunch of their courses that they run they've got paid courses, which obviously I can't afford to do yet, but they're if you go and do a whole bunch of their seminars and that, there's a whole bunch of free information that you can get as well. And one of the messages is that there's no pain, there's no gain without pain. You've got to put the work in. So for example, talking about Facebook ads, I didn't have the money to run Facebook ads. To date, I still don't have the money to run Facebook ads. We haven't run any Facebook ads because I don't have the budget. Up until now, absolutely everything we've done has been on an absolute shoestring with zero marketing budget at all. So, which is phenomenal, really. The big thing with looking at Facebook ads is figuring out what message to put out there. It's very easy to, when people say, hey, put out Facebook ads, you've got to figure out what it is your customer wants. Who is your customer? Where is your customer?
Do Facebook ads. You're like, great.
Yeah.
Go screw yourself, whatever. Yeah, it's just, and people.
I would rather actually take $1,000 right now, and I don't know, and I can't even say go out for dinner, because you can't go out for dinner. I can't even say, go and spend a weekend because you can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. But at the end of the day, what to test, how to test, who's your customer, trying to figure all of that out. And I mean, my next big challenge is YouTube.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk about that, just, and this is sort of like a thing in maintaining sanity, and Entrepreneur Hot Seat's about meeting a new business, figuring out some of the challenges, and hopefully providing some advice that everybody can use. And I got to say, I hear your story so many times working with entrepreneurs. And one of the things, we talk about the 80-20 rule. 80% of where you make your money is only 20% of what you do. So why are you doing all this other stuff that's not making any money and that's making you nuts and creating anxiety? And I think that I believe that there's a point, and you and I have talked about this a lot, where you just pull back and you go, what are the few things that I can really stick with? And I remember I've had a conversation with you when it started going, well, I should be making this and this and this and this. And you just go, well, just let people buy the soap first. And if the stores are buying them, like like
at Maddox Farm. So Maddox Farm was
Maddox Farm, like Maddox Farms. If they're buying the damn stuff, then get them to buy more of it and get them to tell you who they think would buy it too. There's always a path of least resistance with people that love you. And I find entrepreneurs are so inundated with people saying, you should do this, you should do this, that ignore the thing they're doing well at. And they just decide to chase a whole bunch of things, which then pisses off the avenue of money where they are making money. And those folks feel ignored and everything falls down and they go, what did I do wrong? But
because fundamentally, entrepreneurs, I believe, are creative people. And creative people are more about creating and innovating than running a business. One of my biggest challenges is, and I'm terribly ADHD, is constantly getting myself to refocus.
Same. It's super hard. And you always think that if you just do this one thing, that's going to be the ticket. And you constantly walk away from the thing that actually got you there. It's the old thing, go home from the dance with the one you brung, right? And stick with the thing that you're doing that's good.
I think there's that, but I also think that one of the gifts that entrepreneurs have, which is very difficult to quantify, as you call them, men in suits. It's very difficult to quantify to the men in suits, is that little niggly feeling in your gut that says, this is a good idea. And then you put it to a whole bunch of folk and they go, let me check out the reports and let me do the research. And then they come back and go, no, that's a terrible idea. At which stage you've got to make the decision whether to go forward or whether to sit back in your chair and do what you're told. And most creatives are terrible at doing that. And I think that that's the conundrum with being an entrepreneur and being in your own business. I mean, technically speaking, I really should have gone and got a job, when the shit hit the fan. But I think I would rather actually die of COVID, kind of thing.
Oh, man.
That sounds terrible. No disrespect to anybody who's had COVID. I've had COVID.
Or anyone who's had a job.
I just can't. I mean, it would just kill me creatively to have somebody tell me all the time that what I know in my gut is a really good idea can't work.
Yeah.
Because some report done 3 years ago says it won't work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's every story in the world of successful entrepreneurs. The lady, I don't remember what her name was, the lady who invented Spanx, the underwear stuff. And you see her story and you're like, oh my God, if it's a good idea, don't worry about people stealing it, because if it's really good, people will run away screaming from it. They'll tell you it's the worst idea in the world, which is what happened to her.
So, yeah, absolutely. So when you go to your 80-20% thing, at the bottom line is that the business principles haven't changed, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
we got to remind ourselves as creatives that as much as it's fun to do nice new things, you've got to make sure that the bottom line still works. Having said that, I also think that following your gut is really, really important, and looking for the white spaces is really, really important. And if I'm in a really saturated red ocean right now with respect to product and soap, where are the gaps? So for example, using that, my whole thing was, you know, when we started making hippos, it was about giving thanks and providing hope and sharing a little bit of kindness, which has led us to the whole journey of who are our customers. They're conscious consumers wanting to make a difference. Okay, so where to go from there? So our new product line, which I am innovating because I am that terrible creative person, is around zero waste. So again, our hippos come naked in the box. My children think I'm terrible because they say to me, Mom, how can you talk about that your hippos are naked? And I just think that it's really, really important to understand that every part of the journey has to play a role. And so understanding your product, from what's in your product to what your product comes in, is fundamental. And so, you know, this is sort of action to a new journey.
There you are.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Consciousness and the whole thing of making a difference. And I think one of the ways that we can make a difference is through conscious decisions about the products we buy and the services we invest in, which I think that there's a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs in absolutely every industry to take white space from big companies.
I think there's also, you know, I worked on Smart Suites, which was a huge success story. And we could never figure out how this college girl, Tara, 22 years old, who looks like she should have been on a surfboard, not making stuff. And she's got this runaway success business making gummy bears, albeit with no sugar in them, but like, you know, gummy bears for people who have problems with sugar. How is she making $1 million or $2 million a year with one person working in the company? And then we figured it out. It's that she was the queen of Instagram, queen of one thing. And she communicated with her tribe. Hey guys, I'm da 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 da. That's what she does anyway. If she wasn't making gummy bears, she'd still be doing that. And they loved her. And that was the answer, was that she had that thing, that what you call white space, which was a personal connection with people that the president of Nestle or Cadbury or Mars, can you imagine the president texting with the kids? No. With you, you know, when you say it's not about soap, it's about hope, I can tell you that I, and everybody at BrandDIY who worked on this, the one thing that they said, they felt so great doing it because of your philosophy that when things are shitty, help other people. And in times of COVID, things are shitty for all of us. And by helping other people, we feel less shitty ourselves.
Yeah.
Buy some soap. And I'm like, that's an awesome thing. And I can tell you that Unilever or whoever it is can't take that, you know? And oh, by the way, the soap is good.
Yeah, the soap's really good.
The soap is really good. So it's not like it's made somewhere out in the woods by somebody who is, you know, some sort of crafty person. It's really, really good. Like, it's as good as anything you'll get. But the whole idea that when you're down and out, help other people, it's incredible. And that is like Tara talking to her.
Yeah, absolutely. You
so
know
the
what?
Whole secret of the business isn't even what everybody said. Oh, so not a good business. That's not the secret of the business.
I think that the whole aspect of sustainability and ethical business. So, for example, our soaps are vegan. They're I call them botanically powerful. So, I mean, we use a huge amount of botanical additives and aromatherapy oils. So there's no fragrances, there's no synthetic scents. It's all 100% natural. Our base ingredients, for example, if you look at the shea butter, supports an incredible group of women in Ghana. So our palm oil is all sustainable, free palm oil. Every single aspect of from choosing the ingredient to say, hey, you know, where did that actually come from? It's not just about making a bar of soap. It's about being really conscious about every single aspect of the journey in terms of manufacturing that product, empowered people and provided hope. From conception of where the oil came from, right through to the customer who's buying it, and then of course a percentage of the proceeds going back to another community back in Africa that hopefully will develop a degree of sustainability for themselves. I think that I mean, my philosophy, Mark, is that when you set out with great intentions and you are really genuine about making a difference, you'll find your tribe. And if it's I always say you never follow the money. It's a terrible financial rule to have, but if the idea is really good enough, the money will come. And that's where Tara has done so well as well.
Yeah. All right, and I'm going to wrap it with that. Now, a lot of people are going to see this. Where do they go buy soap? BEBABotanica.com, right?
At BEBABotanica.com, please. Yes. We need you to get some hippos.
Notes too, so that they know where to go.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, Barbara,
Take
thank
care.
you so much for joining me today.
Take care. Thank you so much for having me.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.